My husband emptied our life savings and disappeared for self-discovery only to return after his online girlfriend scammed him and expected me to take him back. I really need to get this off my chest and get some perspective. My husband Marcus and I were married for 6 years. We met in college during our final year when we were paired for a group project. We started dating after graduation and were together for 2 years before getting married. We both landed good jobs right after college. I worked in marketing and he worked in finance. Life was really good for us. We had a comfortable lifestyle, lived in a nice apartment in a good neighborhood, and were saving aggressively for our first house. Marcus and I always had similar goals in life. We both wanted to buy a house before having kids, and we were finally getting close to having enough saved for a down payment. We had about $48,000 saved up and were planning to start seriously house hunting in the next few months. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but we communicated well and resolved any issues that came up. At least that's what I thought until 3 months ago. I came home from work one evening in March to find most of his clothes missing from our closet. At first, I thought maybe he was doing laundry or reorganizing, but then I found a note on our dining table. The note just said he needed time for self-discovery and personal growth, and that he would contact me when he was ready. I tried calling him immediately but his phone was switched off. I called his workplace in panic and that's when I got the first shock. They told me he had resigned a week ago. My hands were shaking as I checked our joint account, and sure enough, he had withdrawn almost all our savings. There was only about $2,000 left in the account. He had been making multiple withdrawals over the past week, probably to avoid raising any red flags at the bank. I couldn't understand what was happening because this wasn't like Marcus at all. He was always the responsible one in our relationship. He did our taxes, managed our investments, and was always careful with money. We had been planning our future together just the previous weekend. We spent Sunday morning looking at houses online and discussing which school districts would be best for our future kids. Everything seemed completely normal. I called his parents right away, but they hadn't heard from him either. His mom broke down crying on the phone saying she couldn't believe her son would do something like this. His father, who had always treated me like his own daughter, was furious. He works in law enforcement and said he would try to track Marcus down through his connections. I filed a missing person report but hit a dead end there. The police said they couldn't do much since he left voluntarily and had accessed the money himself from our joint account. I went to our bank the next day but they said the same thing. Since it was a joint account, both of us had equal rights to the money. I couldn't even file charges against him for taking the money. For the first few days, I was barely functioning. I couldn't sleep or eat properly. I kept checking my phone hoping for a message from him. I went through all our recent conversations and photos trying to find any sign that would explain his behavior. I even checked our credit card statements to see if there were any unusual purchases, but everything seemed normal. We had our usual morning coffee together the day he left, kissed goodbye before work, and he even texted me during lunch asking what I wanted for dinner. His best friend Tom reached out to me about a week after Marcus disappeared. He came over and told me something that made my stomach turn. According to Tom, Marcus had been acting strange for the past couple of months. He was always on his phone or laptop, which wasn't usual for him. Whenever Tom asked what he was doing, Marcus would say he was researching investment opportunities. Tom said he felt guilty for not telling me earlier but he didn't think it was anything serious since Marcus had always been interested in investments. I had to tell my workplace what happened because my performance was suffering. I couldn't focus on anything and kept breaking down at random moments. My boss was surprisingly understanding and gave me 2 weeks of paid leave to sort things out. My sister Holly moved in with me temporarily because she was worried about my mental state. I couldn't eat or sleep properly, and kept having anxiety attacks thinking about how the man I trusted most in my life had betrayed me like this. The hardest part was dealing with people's questions. We have a large friend circle and were quite active in our local community. Everyone kept asking about Marcus and I had to explain the situation over and over. People were shocked because we were the couple everyone thought had it all figured out. We never fought in public, always supported each other's dreams and seemed perfectly happy. Even I thought we were happy. The financial reality hit hard pretty quickly. I couldn't afford our apartment on my salary alone. I had to break our lease and move to a much smaller place in a different neighborhood. Holly helped me pack up his stuff and move it to his parents' house. Every item I packed was like a knife to my heart: the coffee mug I got him last Christmas that said "World's Best Husband," his favorite sweater that still smelled like him, the expensive watch I saved up for months to give him on our 5th anniversary. Each item reminded me of our life together and the future we had planned. It's been 3 months now and I'm still trying to process everything. I've stopped checking my phone constantly hoping for a message from him. I've stopped crying myself to sleep every night. I've even started to accept that maybe this is for the best. If he could plan this betrayal for months and execute it so coldly after 6 years of marriage, maybe I never really knew him at all. I keep wondering if there were signs I missed, red flags I ignored. But honestly, up until the day he left, he was the same loving, attentive husband he had always been. His parents still check on me regularly. They're as confused and hurt as I am. His mother told me she keeps trying his old email addresses and social media accounts but there's been no response. His father's connections haven't turned up anything either. It's like he just vanished into thin air with our savings and left everyone who loved him behind. Update 1. I didn't expect to be updating this so soon, but something happened yesterday that I need to share. After 3 months of complete silence, Marcus finally contacted me. The truth about his disappearance is even worse than I imagined. He met someone online 6 months ago and had been planning to run away with her all this time. He called me from a cheap motel in Los Angeles, crying and saying he had made the biggest mistake of his life. According to him, he met this woman, Jasmine, 27F, through an investment forum online. She claimed to be a successful crypto trader and social media influencer with over 100,000 followers. She convinced him she could help him turn our savings into millions through her exclusive investment schemes. Marcus admitted that he had been unhappy with his life for a while. He said turning 32 made him feel like he was getting old without achieving anything significant. This woman made him feel young and excited about life again. She would video call him late at night when I was asleep, telling him about her luxurious lifestyle and promising she could help him achieve the same. The more he talked, the more I realized how long he had been planning this. He started sending her money 6 months ago, small amounts at first. She would show him screenshots of supposed investment returns, convincing him to invest more. He was so convinced about her legitimacy that he quit his job, thinking he would make enough money through crypto trading to never work again. When he left me, he flew straight to Los Angeles where she lived. They had already planned everything. She had sent him pictures of luxury apartments they would rent together and exotic cars they would buy once their investments matured. He spent the first month living in expensive hotels, taking her out to fancy restaurants, and giving her cash for various investment schemes. But last week, everything fell apart. The investment return she promised never materialized, and when our savings started running low, she suddenly became distant. She stopped answering his calls and blocked him on all social media. When he went to her supposed address, he found out she had been renting an Airbnb just for their meetings. He had no way to contact her or get our money back. His parents bought him a plane ticket home as soon as he called them. They've been calling me nonstop since yesterday, begging me to give him another chance. His mother keeps saying that people make mistakes and marriage is about forgiveness. His father, who was ready to hunt Marcus down 3 months ago, now thinks I should at least hear him out. They're worried about his mental state and think having his wife back would help him recover. What infuriates me most is how everyone seems to think I should just welcome him back because he's sorry. They don't understand that it's not just about the money. He deliberately planned this for months. He quit his job without telling me. He systematically withdrew our savings knowing it would leave me struggling to pay rent. He chose to pursue some fantasy with an online stranger over our 8-year relationship. Tom visited me today and filled in more gaps in the story. Apparently, Marcus had been sending this woman expensive gifts for months before he left. He had been skipping lunch at work and telling colleagues he was on a diet, but really, he was saving that money to send to her. He bought her designer bags, jewelry, and even paid for her car repairs once. Tom said he tried to warn Marcus that it seemed like a scam, but Marcus was convinced she was different. He told Tom that I wouldn't understand because I was too conventional in my thinking. The worst part is that Marcus now expects me to help him recover financially. He mentioned during our call that he would need to move back in with me because he can't afford a place of his own. He actually suggested that we could start saving again and that this time he would let me manage the money. As if the problem was just about who manages the money and not about him betraying my trust in the worst possible way. I haven't told him I moved to a smaller apartment. I haven't told him about the lease I had to break, the moving costs I had to bear alone, or the credit card debt I got into trying to survive these past months. He has no idea how his actions impacted my life because he was too busy living out his fantasy in luxury hotels with his online girlfriend. Holly thinks I should meet him once just to get closure, but I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Every time I think about seeing him face to face, I feel sick to my stomach. The man who called me yesterday, crying and apologizing, is a stranger to me. The Marcus I knew, or thought I knew, would never have done something like this. His parents are planning to pick him up from the airport tomorrow. They want me to be there, but I told them I'm not coming. I need time to process all this. Just when I was starting to accept his disappearance and move forward with my life, he shows up with this ridiculous story expecting everything to go back to normal. I don't think he realizes that some things can't be fixed with just an apology. Update 2, Marcus came back last week and things have been absolute chaos since then. He showed up at my new apartment unannounced. I hadn't told him my new address, but I guess his parents did. He looked terrible, he had lost at least 20 pounds, had dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes were wrinkled like he had been sleeping in them. He started crying as soon as I opened the door. He fell to his knees in the hallway, making a scene in front of my neighbors. I had to let him in just to avoid the embarrassment. He brought a folder full of bank statements to show me he still had $12,000 left from our savings. He kept saying he would get a job immediately and pay back every penny. He even offered to sign a post-nuptial agreement giving me control of all our future assets. Then he dropped another bombshell that made my blood boil. He confessed that he had actually met this woman twice before in secret. Remember those 2 work trips he took to California in January and February? Those weren't work trips at all. He flew out to meet her, spending our money on luxury hotels and expensive dates. He claims nothing physical happened during those meetings, but at this point, I don't believe anything he says. His story about these secret meetings made me realize how methodically he had planned everything. He created fake work emails about conferences, booked flights using our travel rewards points so they wouldn't show up on our credit card, and even bought a second phone to communicate with her. All while sleeping next to me every night and planning our future together. His parents have been relentless with their calls and messages. They think I'm being cruel by not giving him a chance to make amends. His mother even brought up our talks about having kids, saying we shouldn't throw away the chance to have a family over one mistake. She doesn't understand that this wasn't one mistake, it was hundreds of deliberate choices he made every day for months. Yesterday, he sent me a long email detailing all the things he would do to rebuild our marriage. He said he would go to counseling, find a better job, let me track his phone and emails, and even move in with his parents until I trust him again. He wrote that losing our savings was actually a good thing because it made him realize what truly matters in life. The audacity of that statement made me laugh. He talks about losing our savings like it was some divine intervention that taught him a lesson, completely ignoring the fact that I'm the one who had to deal with the consequences. I'm the one who had to move to a smaller apartment in a less safe neighborhood. I'm the one who had to sell my car to cover the lease breaking fees. I'm the one who had to ask my sister for grocery money because he left me with nothing. Tom has been keeping me updated about Marcus's job search. Apparently, Marcus is telling potential employers that he took a sabbatical for personal growth. He's completely whitewashing what actually happened. He's also been asking our friends for money, promising to pay them back once he gets a job. Some of them actually gave him money, which makes me think I'm the only one seeing him for who he really is. The most frustrating part is how he's managed to spin this narrative where he's the victim. He tells everyone he had a mental breakdown because of work stress and made a terrible mistake. He conveniently leaves out the part about planning this for months, secretly meeting this woman, and systematically withdrawing our savings. His parents and some of our friends are buying into this story, making me feel like I'm the unreasonable one for not forgiving him. I've decided to stop engaging with anyone who tries to convince me to take him back. I've blocked his parents' numbers and muted the group chats where friends keep bringing up the situation. I need to focus on rebuilding my life instead of constantly defending my decision to end this marriage. Update 3: The divorce papers were finally filed yesterday. I had been working with my lawyer for the past 2 weeks to get everything in order. Marcus tried everything he could think of to change my mind during this time. He even got our pastor involved, who showed up at my workplace to counsel me about forgiveness and the sanctity of marriage. His latest attempt was to post a long public apology on Facebook, tagging me and all our friends. He wrote about how he had a mental breakdown and made the biggest mistake of his life. He talked about how losing me made him realize what truly matters, and how he would spend the rest of his life trying to make amends. Most of our friends commented with supportive messages, calling me cold-hearted for not giving him another chance. The comments under his post were infuriating. People who have no idea what really happened were writing things like everyone deserves a second chance and love conquers all. Some even suggested that I must have done something to drive him away. I wanted to respond and tell them how he methodically planned his betrayal for months, but I realized it wasn't worth my energy. Last weekend, he tried one final dramatic gesture. He showed up outside my apartment with our old wedding album and a Bluetooth speaker, playing our first dance song. My neighbors called me to tell me he was sitting on the steps crying and looking through the album. I had to call Tom to come pick him up because I didn't want to deal with it myself. His parents have now changed their approach. Instead of calling me directly, they're going through my family. They contacted my parents and my sister, trying to get them to convince me to reconsider. My mom actually started to sympathize with them until I showed her all the bank statements and evidence of his secret meetings with that woman. I've moved in with my sister permanently and changed my phone number. I told my lawyer to handle all communication with Marcus going forward. Some days are still hard, especially when mutual friends try to update me about his life or when I find old photos on my phone. But I know I made the right decision. The only positive thing in all this is that I got a promotion at work. My boss said she was impressed by how professionally I handled everything despite my personal problems. I'm slowly building my savings again, and I've even started looking at small condos to buy on my own. Some of our friends have stopped talking to me, clearly taking a side in all this. But surprisingly, Tom has stuck by me. He said he feels guilty for not warning me earlier about Marcus's strange behavior and wants to make up for it. He's been helping me move and get settled in my new place. Marcus's latest message through my lawyer was that he wouldn't sign the divorce papers unless I agreed to meet him one last time. My lawyer advised that we could proceed without his cooperation, it would just take longer. I'm prepared for that. I'd rather wait than give him another opportunity to manipulate me emotionally. I don't care what anyone thinks anymore. I know my worth and I deserve better than someone who could throw away 8 years of love and trust for an online fantasy. Some people say I'm being unforgiving, but I think I'm finally being fair to myself.